Well, hello, Dr. Shepard.
Hey, Bishop, and good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to all of our listeners out there.
We again are so very happy. We look forward to this time that we spend together in the spirit in mind space. You can join us. Let someone know that we are here, right here at the offices of Praise 106, right here in the Radio One studios. And we look forward to what we're going to talk about today. In fact, you can be a part of the conversation by calling in at 443 380 2803. 443 380 2803. You can be a part of our discussion right here on Spirit in Mind. And Dr. Shepard is going to share some other ways that we can stay connected.
Yes, and good afternoon again, everyone, and we want you to stay connected to us. We are so blessed to hear the comments and suggestions and the testimonies, literally, of those who watch and those who are viewing the broadcast and listening to the broadcast. You can view if you go to our social media pages. You are definitely listening. If you're listening right now to Praise 106.1, and we're so blessed to be a part of that community. If you want to catch us on social media, go to Bishop C. Guy Robinson's social media page at CGR Ministries. You can catch him on Facebook, Instagram, even on YouTube. Go there and subscribe. We would love to have you be a part of that community. He is also a pastor and a university professor, so you can catch him multiple ways, and I'm sure you'll be blessed by that. You can also listen in to me on various different platforms. You can go to my webpage, drjonathanshepard.com, and you'll see where different events are going on, where I have been asked to participate. If you're in need of direct care services, please reach out to me. I do have contacts within the state of Maryland and District of Columbia, and so want to make sure that our people are being taken care of. Let me tell you, this is also Black History Month, and we want to make sure we acknowledge all of the efforts and accomplishments and the things that our ancestors have done before us. And again, these are troubling times. And so, even with the acknowledgement, we want to make sure that our people are doing well. And so, even though we have many successes, many achievements and accomplishments, we want to make sure that we're thriving. We want to make sure that we're living. And so, reach out to us. And so, as you reach out to us, we can provide you that care and help that you need. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And we look forward again to our ongoing connection as we are sharing here on Spirit in Mind. So, listen, in the tradition of the church, the hymn writer said, "Time is filled with swift transition." And certainly, there are many changes that we're experiencing in our current times, in our lifetime, and over the course of our lifespan. And we have been talking about transitions here and dealing with life transitions, embracing transitions, and then finding ourselves in the new places for those seasons in the midst of those transitions. And today we want to continue that subject. And perhaps life is taking you through the transition. You may find yourself in a new place, in a strange place, uh, geographically, or perhaps professionally, or in terms of employment, or in terms of relationships. There are a whole lot of ways in which we are traversing, if you will, through the stages and experiences of life. And so, new places, new faces are a part of those transitions. And if you are going through any of that, and of course, we're still really in the first quarter of a new year. And so, I know time is moving swiftly, but if you find yourself in new places, we want to hear about how you adapt and some of those adapting skills. And so, again, change happens. What can often make the critical difference between our spiritual and emotional or psycho spiritual wellness and even our physical wellness of spirit, soul, and body is the adapting mechanisms, the coping strategies, the perspectives, the cognitions, the way we view our situation, and the subsequent decisions we make are, sometimes the critical distinction between emotional and spiritual wellness and or other concerns. And so we're going to talk, and Dr. Shepard's going to lead us a little further, and then we will look forward to hearing in the chat line or on the phone line about your experiences as well.
Absolutely. And Bishop, I'm just going to just continue with the fact that it is Black History Month and just thinking about the fight that we have had in this country and really throughout the world. But if we focus it on the United States of America, the fight that we've had for equality. And you look at all the things that have happened, even up until this day, as there still is a fight for equality. I
Mhm.
just want to make sure we're clear on that. But you think about all the various different transitions. And as you were just even talking, I was thinking about how in Brown versus education and just those different landmark cases that have been the Board of Education, I should say Brown versus the Board of Education, and just thinking about the different landmark cases that have really set the course for civil rights. And you go through these moments of time where it's transition and you're fighting for those rights and you're fighting for what you want, and you have that mindset that we're going to get to where we want to be. And then I think about, Bishop, that once you're done with the fight, you get to that new place.
Mhm.
You get to that place where you actually have achieved what you've been fighting for. And it really sets the tone today because you do go through transitions. You go through that time that you struggle with and you're wrestling with it. But there is an end. There is an end result. And for those who are fighting for freedom and for equality, we do fight, and many times we do win that fight. Sometimes we don't, but many times we do win that fight. And as I'm thinking about, so after the fight is over, you find yourself in a new place. You wonder, how do you now respond? Do you keep on fighting? Uh, you know, is there a change of mindset now that you find yourself in that new place? Now that you find yourself in those new surroundings? I thought about even Bishop when I moved here to the state of Maryland, 2009, from this great state of Illinois and the great city of Chicago, and just how I went through all that preparation, made that transition, and then once I arrived here in Maryland, it was almost a little anticlimactic, Bishop, because I was like, man, okay, I did all this preparation, I did all this and that, and now here I am. And it, I realized that I had to change mindset. I had to change ways in which I approached the way that I dealt with things back in Illinois or Chicago, not the same way in which people deal with things in Maryland or in the city of Baltimore. And so, what we were sharing with you today is that there is a time that will come in the transition where you will get to the end result. I believe that you get to the destination. But what we want to talk about today, and I asked Bishop if it would be okay if we even just talk about some of the past experiences when you find yourself in a new place. Uh, I found myself in a new place in Baltimore in 2009. I'm going to throw it to Bishop. I asked if he would be okay to share with just some of the new experiences that he felt as he transitioned into becoming a university professor, into becoming a pastor, because these lived experiences are really key and essential to how you transform from the transitional place, if you would, into living in that new place.
Yes, yes. So that's what we're going to talk about, and I want to be clear so that everyone that we're transitioning, because Dr. Shepard has mentioned two things, and it's so very important. One is we are being mindful of this Black History Month. Started out Black History Week with Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and chose the month of February because of the lives of some significant persons in this month. And so that's how it started, evolved into Black History Month. And as it concerns, I want to be clear that as it concerns Black history and the pursuit of civil rights and equity and all those things, that relational progress is an ongoing effort
Yes.
because it's relational. We want to be clear. So, yes, there are some points at which we get to a point and rest, but I want to be clear for those who some people believe that we were living in a post-racial society,
Mm.
and particularly after the election of President Obama, believe that that was indicative of mark the beginning of a post-racial society. And we found out that that was not the case, because it's relational and because bias is fundamental to human existence. And whenever you have bias plus power, there's the opportunity for oppression. Wherever there's bias plus power, there's an opportunity for oppression and or inequity and injustice. And so that's why this conversation has to continue. It can't just be legislated. It has to be continually discussed, because whenever you have bias, and human beings are biased beings, that's us. And whenever bias and power come together, there's the opportunity for oppression and or inequity. And so if it's not by legislation, it can be by culture, because oppression can be, and colonization and those things can be cultural, they can be ideological, they can be institutional. And so there are multiple presentations, which is why every time we make progress, there's still a need to maintain it and even move forward. So that can't just change because someone signed a piece of paper. Signing papers is a quicker act than changing hearts.
Yes, sir.
And changing mindsets. And whenever you get bias plus power, Jim Wallace famously defines racism as prejudice plus power, because the combination of prejudice plus power to legislate and to create policy and to implement plans, bias plus power can be a breeding ground for inequity, oppression, which is why these conversations have to continue, which is why Black History Month has to continue, which is why HBCUs are still important, because there's a disparity, and that colonization is not just a geographical experience, but there's also epistemic and pedagogical colonization, whereby the educational systems are colonized and the instruction is colonized and history is revised. And so these conversations have to continue. So certainly we are still going through with that. And that's why we still need these conversations. There's still a tremendous wealth gap. There's still tremendous inequities. Some studies have shown that it would still literally take centuries for financial equity, for the wealth gap to be closed at its present rate of progress. And so that's why these conversations must continue, lest we believe we have arrived and rest on our inequities and mythologies of post-racist bias. So these are why these conversations are still important, and why these changes and things have to change, and mindsets. So having said that, change is continual, and whatever stage of change we're in, it's so important that we learn to accept that. So even when we get to a place, so going through my own personal, Dr. Shepherd has shared about his transitions. And so, Dr. Shepherd, I live by that scripture that is Proverbs 19 and 20. Proverbs 19 and 20 says, many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose, the counsel of the Lord, that will prevail, that will stand. And so, like many of you that are listening, we have plans for our lives. We start out like that as kids. When I grow up, I'm going to be an astronaut, or when I grow up, I'm going to be a police officer or any other noble profession. We grow up with these plans, and then those plans, as we mature, begin to modify. Then life begins to narrow out certain options, and then other options become more viable than others. And in the Jewish midrash, they say, man plans and God laughs. Because many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. And so I say that to say, I'll just use my educational experience for an example. It's amazing to me that I am privileged to teach classes on the campus of my alma mater, my undergraduate alma mater, but I'm in a completely different building and school and a totally different side of the campus from what I studied as an undergraduate student. As an undergraduate, my major was in one building, And then as my purpose and plan began to unfold, it became clear to me that, I was being led in another direction. And so now to be in the building of behavioral sciences, having started out in the building of performing arts,
Wow.
is just an amazing transition. So you talk about new places. In some ways, I'm back on a familiar campus, but I'm in a new place. And so that's what we mean. Sometimes being in a new place is not geographical. Sometimes it is. Perhaps you relocated to another city, like Dr. Shepard, and working in another city. Perhaps you relocated geographically, but sometimes you can be in the same geographical space,
Yes, sir.
but in a different headspace, in a different relation space. And so the point is learning to adapt and to adjust to those things. I'm going to pause right there in case Dr. Shepard is going to put me on the couch and got any questions for me.
I tell you, Bishop, thank you. I appreciate the way in which you just eloquently explain why we need to continue to fight and continue to make sure that we are promoting Black History Month. Thank you, sir. I want to touch that. You did an excellent job with that. And thank you again for even explaining how you can be geographically in one place and still in the same place and yet be in a different place, living in a new place. And I've seen that even for myself. And again, that for some people it happens with age. It doesn't happen with everybody, but you would hope that as you change from year to year, and even for my friends who know me, I tell them that if I'm in the same place where I was this time last year, then something's wrong. It's because literally I expect to grow. I don't expect to be in the same place where I am even this time next year in 2025, February 10th, 2025. I expect to be at a higher level in my professional, in my personal life, in my prayer life, in my spiritual walk. I expect to be at a higher place because I don't want to live in the same place. And it really does, Bishop, I tell you, require a mindset change. I was just thinking about the different challenges and experiences that I faced once I made a geographical move. Um, the streets were different. The way in which people drive are different, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I can remember even driving down Ricerstown Road and Liberty Road, and I saw people literally waving. I thought they were waving at me, Bishop.
Yeah.
I thought they were waving at me. Come to find out, they were trying to. I forget what the term is. They were trying to as a hack. And so and they said, Shepherd, don't pick up a hack. But again, I did not know what that was because I was in a new place. And when you're in a new place, yes, you made the transition. You have to understand that there comes a new language, there comes a new way of carrying yourself, culture almost, if you would. Once I got to the hospital, because I came here to do a fellowship at Johns Hopkins in child and psychiatry, yes, the medications were the same, but the way in which we administered medications, the way in which we offered treatment options were different from when I was working in Illinois. And even the way in which we wrote the notes, even the way in which we presented our cases, I knew how to present a case. I knew how to be able to write progress notes. I knew how to be able to do what was taught from the University of Illinois, where I trained. But when I got to Johns Hopkins, they told me, throw that out. That's not how we do things here. And I couldn't fight with them and say, well, this is what I learned. And I know my way is better than the other way. No, it's one of those things where once you get to the new place, you have to make sure that you understand the ways of operations within that new place. Man, Bishop, I tell you, many times we transition, we get to the new place, but we don't want to change our operations. We don't want to change. Well, they got to work with me. I made it here. I fought this way, and we have to be careful with that mindset. it's close to being stubborn. Uh, Now again, Dr. Shepherd didn't call you stubborn, but you can have a stubborn mindset too, or inflexibility. I'll say it like that, because as you walk into the new place, as you are going through the transition, and you find yourself down at the new destination, you want to make sure that you remain flexible. Yes, we told you about being patient. Yes, we told you about resting. Yes, we told you about looking and assessing, but you also have to have that flexibility. And Bishop, I tell you, when I walked into that new hospital uh, and that new unit where I was, and new not mean that it was brand new, but new to me. It took some time to acclimate to the processes there. And so I want to encourage you as I get ready to hand it back to Bishop. I want to encourage you for those who are going through that acclimation process. I feel you, and it doesn't feel good at times. It really doesn't. But hold on, you know, be flexible. Listen, learn the operations. Know that you're the way which you operated before. You just can't carry that into that new place.
This is so very helpful to me. I hope it's helpful to you to just discuss this, because again, these changes come in different forms, and sometimes they're geographical, sometimes they're ideological. But with something you reminded me of, Dr. Shepard, is that these changes are always also relational. There's a relational impact. They have relational effects, even if you don't leave a place, but particularly if you go to a place, you're meeting new people. Sometimes you can be in the same place. I'm talking to somebody you may not be outside of Baltimore, Maryland. That's where you live. That's where you have lived. You may not be outside of New York, where you're listening, wherever you're listening or streaming and watching us stream. You may be in the Midwest, in the West, wherever you are, may be where you've been for a considerable amount of time, but you have changed because you're not just a human being, you're a human becoming. And as we become, the scriptures say it does not yet appear what we shall be, but this we know, we shall be like him because we are being and becoming. And so as you are becoming, sometimes even our relationships are changed. I know, I talked about my own transition on the college campus. They're different buildings, but they're also different relationships. And some of us can relate. I know you have different parts of your Rolodex. Next week, maybe we could pick up there. But, as we become, David, it comes to mind in the scriptures, when David is a shepherd boy and he's a lunch carrier, his primary relationships are with his father and his brothers. It's his father, but when he moves to the next level, he's anointed king. And then he has a relationship now with Samuel. And so your Rolodex is added and changed. And then when he becomes king, he's in preparation stage rather, and he's anointed king of Judah, then king of Israel. He's an outlaw in Ziklag. We could talk about that, learning to live in Ziklag. That's a place, but it's where God has me for this season, and he has me here for a reason. It's a new place, and he has to deal with the Philistines and the Amalekites. So I'm in this place where I'm not just dealing with mighty men and people who are for me, but I also got to deal with people who I don't get along with. Got to deal with enemies and people who would rather see me fail. And so I'm learning all of this stuff. I'm in a new place because a new place doesn't mean I don't have some battles to fight. So all of these different transitions reflect different phases of relationships as well, because people come in and out, quite frankly, of our lives, depending on where life's transitions have taken us. And that's probably a good, because I know we're in our last 2 minutes. So that's probably where we'll pick up next week. But Dr. Shepard, please give us some insight.
Yes, sir. And so I just want to again just reiterate what the scripture that Bishop stated in Proverbs 19, that many are the plans of a man's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that will prevail. And I hope that that is comfort for you. Thank you, Bishop. I needed to hear that scripture because there are many plans. There's many plans that I know that I have before the Lord. There's many plans that I want to see happen, but I'm watching how God's purpose fails, and I want to make sure that we remember that it's God's plan. We are his instruments. We are his servants. And so thank you, Bishop. I needed to hear that. And I believe other people needed to hear that, be reminded that it's his purpose that will prevail, even when things are not working out, even when things are not they're not being carried out the way in which they were promised to you. It's God's purpose that will prevail. Prevail means that it will win out in the end. So thank you. That's what I wanted to say at the end, Bishop.
Absolutely. And remember, what I have to remember myself is that God's plan is for us. It's not against us. So when we trust the plan of God, we're not trusting in anything that's going to destroy us. We're trusting in a plan that will develop us. Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans, I know the thoughts that I think towards you, thoughts of good and not of evil, to give you hope and a future and bring you to an expected end. When God's plan trumps our plan, it's because he's planned something better. Even if we got to go through something difficult to get there, he's going to bring us out in a better place, because the thoughts he has for us is to bring us to a good expected end. Trust the plan of God. Don't give up. And if God be our help, and he is our help, we look forward to seeing you next week, this time, right here on Spirit in Mind.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at Spirit in Mind, and we're also on Instagram at Spirit in Mind Live. Join us next time for a new episode of Spirit in Mind.